Hi everyone, welcome to my review of The World Is Not Enough from 1999, directed of course by Michael Apted, and yes, the 19th Bond film in the franchise. So we are back once again, of course Bond. Bond is back, and yes, the third Brosnan entry here, of course, and yes, once again another divisive Bond. No surprise there. But yes, there will be spoilers in this discussion. If you haven't seen this film, of course, simply a friendly recommendation that you watch the film, and then come back to this preferably this discussion, of course, and then we can kind of go from there. Discuss the film if you want to kind of leave a comment about your thoughts on this film. So yeah. You can feel free to do that. But yes, with that said, let's discuss this film. A very, very interesting Bond film here. Truly a unique Bond, in my opinion, and of course, there is kind of, as I've said before, there's similarities between this and Tomorrow Never Dies. I recently reviewed that one, of course, and as I said, that the review for this film will be up fairly soon after, and around a week or so after, of course, that review upload. But yes, I think there is some similarities between these two films, of course, and they aren't too popular, at all, really. It seems. But yes, I think this film in particular has actually kind of grown on me more and more the more I've watched it. I don't really. Of course, I watched it as a kid, a few times. When I say, a few times with Bond, it's quite a few times usually. But I think definitely less so than Tomorrow Never Dies, and certainly GoldenEye. This is definitely not a film I watched as much. And to be quite honest, I don't think I preferred it actually to Tomorrow Never Dies. But actually, after watching it again, when I'd done that kind of first kind of full watch of the series chronologically, of course. This one really kind of grew on me quite a bit, and it really just emerged as the one that I thought, wow, that's the one that kind of I maybe didn't pay attention to as much, in terms of favouring perhaps than quite a few of the Bond films when I was younger. So yes, it was very, very interesting to kind of to have that experience, and actually, I stand by the fact that this is, in my opinion, a great, great Bond film. Really, really quite a stunning piece of cinema, actually, and I do think, it's actually better than Tomorrow Never Dies, and it really feels, again, I can kind of notice more and more, it feels like a classical Bond film. It really, really does. In some areas, it doesn't at all, but it really, in its, its core elements, and just the kind of, this has more of a sophistication, I feel, than Tomorrow Never Dies, and just a kind of, real class to it, in so many ways, and just the way in which the narrative progresses, it focuses more on character development as well, this one, than, for example, Tomorrow Never Dies, and for me, this one is a bit more consistent, throughout the entire kind of runtime. I think Tomorrow Never Dies is more of a kind of upbeat, energetic, Bond film. It focuses a lot more on the action. Not to say that this hasn't got big sequences, but that film really focuses on more the action, and of course there is drama, there is narrative there, but it's more of a kind of energetic action film, of a kind of focus more on the comedy as well, perhaps, and just a kind of more of a jolly Bond. This one is a bit more darker in many regards, in terms of the plot, the kind of the tone of it, and I think that's probably why I maybe responded to it a bit less than, for example, Tomorrow Never Dies when I was younger. But yes, seeing this again, over a week ago now, it really once again just reminded me of how much I love this film. This is a really, really great Bond, as I've said, in my opinion. I love, for example, what this does with the characters. MI6. Of course, I've loved. Kind of seeing once again, how MI6 is kind of portrayed in these Pierce Brosnan films. Really focusing on these characters in a particular way. For example, M. Judy Dench. I think she's the best M. Of all time, and I think just the way in which they focus, on her, kind of bring her out. This character, of course. But, the other characters as well within this organisation, they feel like a family, in this film in particular. I love how they're portrayed so much, of course, seeing Tanner once again, and of course, Colin Salmon playing Robinson, who is a great, great character, I think, in these films. Really, really kind of underrated, underappreciated character. Just seeing him in his films, even Die Another Day, actually. We'll get to that, in a sequence in that kind of there's a moment in that I just love Robinson so much, you know, in these films, of course. And yes, M, you know, as I say once again, is so great. You know, in this one, I think just you know, she has a real involvement in the plot as well. You could say it's kind of a side plot, a subplot, but I wouldn't say so. I think actually that's one of the kind of highlights of the film is this, and it's very much kind of you know, the forefront of this narrative actually, and just the character working here, and the way in which they feel like a team. You know, this organization, you know, MI6, of course, it's so you know, kind of warm and charming, and just so investing. It's kind of this whole universe within itself, and yes, just seeing, of course, even in the first act, you know, just them kind of discussing things, and you said some exposition scenes there, of course, with Renard, you know, surrounding, of course, this kind of these discussions that are happening, of course, with different you know, MI6 members, of course, and just seeing once again Judy Dench kind of leading this, but then of course something happening, you know, as we know later on a little bit, and she's captured, of course, and yes, you know, kind of held, you know, as a hostage, you could say. So very interesting, kind of mix you know, mix emotions here, kind of a variety of different you know, scenarios, I guess, for M to kind of you know, be in, and of course Bond's response is really where you know, the heart of the film is, you know, seeing kind of a vulnerable side to Bond, but also just, you know, in the sense of a caring Bond, you know, someone who's showing a lot of humanity in this one, actually, which we'll get to. But yes, I love this. I love MI6 in this one. I love the character development in this film, and I think much more, you know, for me, overall better villains than Tomorrow Never Dies. Although I am a big fan, you know, certainly of Jonathan Pryce, and I really like you know, the villain in that film, of course. But you know, this film here, I think definitely has you know, the better villains. I think Elektra King, you know, is just so great. Of course, Sophie Marceau, you know, she is absolutely wonderful in this film. Of course, so beautiful, and just such a great performance. Especially, you know, I love how you know, when things turn, of course, and it's revealed more that she is, you know, the kind of main villain of the film, in essence. And of course, yes, the basic plot, as we know, kind of, it focuses first, you know, on this assassination of Sir Robert King, and of course he's this oil tycoon, amongst other things, of course. And yes, his daughter, of course, being Elektra. You know, after this assassination, of course, you've got the funeral, and seeing, of course, different scenes there, and a kind of mystery, the definite kind of you know, strange feeling you get from them scenes there, of course, the mystery that's built up, of course. But you know, it's so key, I think. It just of course, knowing what happens and seeing this again is very fun to see. And just yes, of course, Bond is sent eventually to kind of you know, look after, protect Elektra, and of course, because they believe that she will once again kind of be taken by Renard, you know, this, who's a big threat, you know, it appears to be, you know, in the film. And of course, you learn about his bullet, you know, wound, and how it kind of is lodged in his head. Definitely quite you know, unique, you know, kind of trait to Renard. But of course, he doesn't feel pain in this film. Again, very strange. But I think the end result, you know, I'll say on Renard, actually really you know, enjoyable. And just you know, quite a great kind of villain as well. Actually, of course, Robert Carlyle, you know, playing Renard. But of course, we think, you know, the viewer thinks, it certainly seems, of course, that Renard is the main threat of the film. But I love how, you know, as the film goes on, we kind of we're kind of told, you know, visually and elsewhere, that of course Elektra King is the main villain, the main threat. The ultimate threat of the film, and you know, the way this happens organically, and just, you know, it's so patient, this film. I love you know, this film so much in this first act. It kind of, it really takes time to kind of build up you know, the kind of dynamics, the relationships, and the way the plot you know, is kind of revealed. You know, it's very different, very unique, very bold, I feel, actually. And Michael Apted really directed this film quite wonderfully in places, and I just think the narrative to this is so unique, it's so absorbing, and I think just seeing, you know, this character of Renard once again, he really is quite an interesting character, and I think, but I love how, yes, Elektra is the main villain. For me, she is really great as a villain, of course. And Sophie Marceau, you know, gives, as I say, a wonderful performance. She is so charming, kind of delightful performance, while also being very menacing and very much a threat to Bond, and as well, feeling very complex emotions for her, and kind of feeling a lot of sympathy. I definitely feel that, and of course, there is some very kind of seductive moments with Bond as well in this film. His kind of romance. He really feels for this character of Elektra, and it's all the more kind of maybe tragic in the way it plays out because of this, because Bond actually has a kind of relationship with this villain, and it's kind of like GoldenEye, you could say, but very, very different, of course. It's an actual love story in this sense, but of course this this kind of backstory, or this this relationship that's kind of built up throughout the film, and then in the end, when the villain does, of course, kind of fall, perish, it's kind of very, very complex emotions that I feel, and it's kind of course, it's great to see Bond make it out. He always does, but yes, this kind of underlying tragic element to it. Also, Renard, the character is very, very tragic, and it's quite emotional in places as well. Towards the end of the film, he's kind of used so much by Elektra and other characters, and I think yes, a very, very portrayed as a pathetic character, really. But yes, very, very tragic. This film in places. But yes, of course, we have the opening scene, and wow, the opening scene to this film, is one of the most thrilling and just epic intros in all of Bond. For me personally, I think it's around about 14 minutes, really, until we kind of hit the kind of titles, and this is just absolutely thrilling. It's just so much fun, and of course, the kind of boat chase there is so thrilling. It's so fun. It's so energetic and layered. Kind of sustained. The tension there, and just the kind of the way in which this film is shot, and edited, is mostly quite wonderful, actually. And of course, I love the moment you see, of course, Q saying no, it's not finished. That is a hilarious moment, and we'll get to Q very, very soon, because this is, of course, a very, very big film for Q, and of course the actor that plays him. But yes, seeing this reaction, of course, having Q in the opening sequence, and this response to Bond is really hilarious, and of course, moments of comedy in this, also include, just Pierce Brosnan, getting kind of soaked, of course, just drenched from these kind of scenes here. This sequence, he of course was known for doing quite a few of his stunts, himself, and just seeing this, of course, is so great, and really hilarious, in there. Just such an epic sequence, this whole kind of opening, and very, very sustained, as I say, and I love, of course, as well, the moments of brutality, here, and seeing, of course, Brosnan once again portraying this character of Bond, in such a way that I really, really love, his takeover on Bond. He really, he was a great Bond to me, of course. Next up is Die Another Day. Again, that's not a popular film, but we'll get to that. We have some praise once again for Brosnan. I think he really was, such a great Bond, and once again he shows this this harshness, this cold nature of Bond, as a character, and seeing, of course, the office scene, and the kind of the pistol moment there, of course, with the gun, and yes, all these exchanges. This is all rolled into this, packed into this very, very massive opening sequence, and of course leading into the kind of all the falling down there, leading into, of course, the title sequence, which is very, very, very different. I'm a big fan of this title sequence, actually, and I think it's definitely better than quite a few of the Bond films, in their titles. Of course, very psychedelic, this one, very, very colourful, and just very strange, but very quite beautiful as well, very sophisticated, which can sum up the film, actually, in many regards. But yes, of course, the kind of the theme, The World's Not Enough by Garbage, performed by them, and yes, of course, once again, David Arnold, does this score, and I think it really is, once again, absolutely stunning. Well done, David Arnold. This is really, really wonderful, and epic once again. I don't think it's quite as kind of epic and kind of really kind of blood pumping kind of score as Tomorrow Never Dies. I probably actually prefer that score to this, but I love this all the same, and of course the kind of way in which the Bond theme is used is so great, once again. And of course we can't gloss over one of the comedic highlights for me personally. It's quite an epic moment, of course, and you know, it is a very, very divisive moment. Again, some people don't like this moment at all, but for me, it's epic. It's hilarious. You know, it's just kind of a cool moment, of course, and you know, definitely, of course, you know, for it meant to be, you know, over the top moment, but of course, being the, you know, James Bond line, you know, this is kind of in the middle of the film, you know, the centre of the film, and you know, hearing, of course, Christmas Jones saying, "Do you have a name?" and then, of course, the exchange by Brosnan being the name's Bond, the music kicking in, just hilarious moment, and just of course explosions everywhere, and you know, epic use of the theme here going up. Of course, you know, it's just such a kind of insane moment, you know, for me that. Yeah, but it's done in a particular way that I just love it. You know, it just gets me pumped, and at the same time, really laugh out loud moment for me. Just really one of the highlights actually. And yeah, this film, it does have campy moments, but again, it has this serious tone. You know, it's not a film that, you know, that's perfect for me. You know, as a Bond film, as a film, it's kind of. It has, you know, it has some tonal issues slightly. There are some slights along the way. It's not. I wouldn't say it's kind of a particular act. You know, maybe Act 1, 2, 3, etc. I wouldn't say it's kind of a particular you know, sustained sequence. It's just here and there. You know, kind of moments, touches. You know, here and there that I feel is slightly, you know, slightly off, maybe tone. You know, I think there's a moment, of course, when Elektra and Bond are kind of driving, of course. Some of the dialogue there, you know, there's one such example that just kind of, there is something lacking, there is something kind of slightly off with the tone. It's not quite perfect in its tone, as I say, but, you know, and it's kind of something very hard to describe, but it kind of maybe feels, yeah, it's just a bit off in terms of the character, or just, you know, the actual exposition, you know, there, I think it kind of feels a little bit forced, you know, but other than that, you know, I think it touches here and there, you know, in that sense, and some things that could have been, you know, even better to kind of elevate the film. I think this is mostly a film that I don't really have too many problems with. I think, of course, you know, one of the criticisms, you know, of this film, as well as of course, the character, you know, herself of Christmas Jones, this nuclear physicist, you know, being played, of course, by Denise Richards, and of course, you know, again, it's been criticised over the years, and you know, really, of course, you know, a lot of people do not like this performance, and actually, once again, that's kind of, I feel a bit differently about that this time round. I think actually, you know, I think Christmas Jones, you know, she's not the best character at all by any means. She's definitely a character who is, you know, kind of frustrating maybe at times. One who, you know, is kind of definitely not a believable character. But I think, really, all things considered, I actually don't mind. Yes, I don't mind the character of Christmas Jones, and actually, as the film goes on, I see more and more in it. You know, in terms of, you know, kind of nice feelings, and you know, this relationship with Bond. Actually, by the end of the film, this time round, I was kind of yeah, behind this in some way, and actually, I didn't mind you know, this character overall. I think, you know, again, not the best character, you know, by any means, but you know, Denise Richards, you know, she gives a fine, you know, kind of. You know, there's a fine presence to the film. I don't think it's anything that kind of ruins the film in that sense. That's what I'm trying to say. But yes, again, maybe a slight to the film, you know, but kind of, and something that maybe could have been better. But other than that, you know, I think most of the characters here are great. I think the performances really are spot on, especially, of course, you know, Sophie Marceau. You know, she is so great in the film. You know, Judy Dench once again. You know, really is so great in this film. And of course, she's out on the field. You know, in this film, of course. One of the narrative points being that she is, you know, kind of captured, and of course Bond is sent to, you know, rescue her in that sense, and it kind of shows a very, very important kind of dynamic, and kind of you know, kind of point in their relationship actually as well, and development, you know, in that sense, and just as I say, you know, these villains, and of course the side characters, you know, new and existing, are so well kind of balanced, I feel, in this film. And you know, there is quite a few you know, moments in this film actually that are kind of quite emotional, quite touching, actually, and very, very human, of course. Also, you know, this is the final, we must say now, the final performance by, of course, Desmond Llewelyn, you know, as Q. He was in, of course, 17 James Bond films, official Bond films, of course, and this is, his final role, final performance, for this character, and this portrayal, of course. And he was, in the film, of course, Q, kind of training up at least, kind of a replacement, being, of course, John Cleese's R in the film, referred to as R, and that's kind of interesting. But this was not planned, for Desmond Llewelyn to actually exit, the kind of the series here. But that's very, very sad. Of course, this is the final performance, of course, of Desmond Llewelyn, as Q, because this is such, kind of a legendary, charming, lovable character, in cinema history. I think Q is one of the most, iconic characters. He could be called a side character, just kind of a minor character. But to me, and of course many Bond fans, he's more than that. Q was always such a kind of highlights of Bond films. I think just seeing it every time, Desmond Llewelyn show up and kind of give his kind of thing. And, often he would be having more of an involvement. For example, in the narrative, out on the field, perhaps. License to Kill comes to mind as one of his best, if not his best, actual. Kind of involvement in a Bond film, but of course, just always, the grace, the kind of warmth, the charm, the banter between, him and Bond, Q and Bond. Just seeing this character was one of the great things about Bond films, and of course, not to dismiss the other kind of takes on Q. No. But seeing Desmond Llewelyn is just it was such a special, it is such a special kind of treat, as a Bond fan, just as a film fan, and of course, it's very, very sad. And actually, there is a moment, kind of a line there. It feels like a kind of the end of Q. Even though, as I say, it wasn't intended for this to be the case, and kind of it wasn't intended for Q to kind of go out of the series. Of course, or Desmond Llewelyn, as Q going out of the series, but it seems like something is very, very felt there. It really is quite sad, indeed. And yes, that kind of adds this kind of tragic element to the film, actually, as well. And of course, we'll see more of John Cleese, as this character, of course, in the second entry that he's in. Of course, Die Another Day, but we'll get to that. But Q is always, for me, the best Q for me is Desmond Llewelyn, and yes, a tribute to this wonderful, wonderful actor, wonderful individual. Would of course say he was great. He was really, really great. He was wonderful, and yes, that's another thing to kind of note about this film, and pay tribute, of course, to the wonderful Desmond Llewelyn, and yes, as we go on in the film, of course, we have. Very much kind of thrilling set pieces, as I say. This film is filled with action sequences, very different, of course, to Tomorrow Never Dies, as I've discussed. But it's definitely a kind of a thrilling, epic, grand adventure. Once again, it does feel more like a Bond film as well in the kind of locations in this one, and of course the skiing sequence, as well later on in the film, and all the scenes of Elektra and Bond, of course, these kind of love scenes, you could say, just add this kind of layer of sophistication, class, style, just kind of a romantic feeling that I think Tomorrow Never Dies lacked consistently, because of course you had Paris in that film, but not for the entire kind of duration of that film. But yes, this film is definitely more focused on kind of a meaningful romance in that sense. It's definitely more of a kind of romantic film in general, and I think just seeing as well the way this film is directed, this film has such style. It really, really does. And I think just the way it's shot is so kind of wonderful, actually. So beautiful, the way the locations are captured, and just seeing actually the architecture, in this film, different buildings that kind of, are kind of focused on in the film. For example, where characters could be discussing different things as well. MI6, for example, all these different moments. I think it really captures, the sense of just class in general throughout the entire film. And there are some wacky moments. There are some moments that, yes, go at times a bit too far. But overall, it's definitely more of a kind of a callback to classical Bond, for example, from Rush of Love. It's definitely a callback in the feeling, in the kind of in the beauty, and just the kind of the grace actually, in the way the film is, shot, edited, and just the actual feeling of this film is definitely more of a kind of a classical Bond to than say, of course, Tomorrow Never Dies, for example. But yes, it's very interesting to see, and the middle of the film is so great for the character development, the exchanges, of course. These films, the Goldeneye, of course, Tomorrow Never Dies, and this are all about the kind of interactions as well. So much. I love how, of course, MI6 is portrayed, but villains, heroes, the way that Bond, of course, interacts or has some sort of past, or relationship chemistry with a particular villain or surrounding characters. For example, in Tomorrow Never Dies, being Paris, have a form of flame. A form of flame of Bond, that happens to be, in a relationship at that time with the actual villain Elliot Carver, and that's a kind of interesting thing there. But this film as well, the very unique kind of backstory to Elektra, and of course the relationship that forms between Elektra and Bond, and then of course for the reveal that she is the kind of main villain, in essence, just makes it such a kind of thrilling, kind of layered Bond film actually, in that sense of character interactions in the film, and of course no less than just a great Bond film for its action, in my opinion. Of course, just so many highlights. Again, some of the final act could have been a little bit better, but overall, it really is such a kind of enjoyable action film, and again, it's more focused on the character work in this one. It really has a balance, a very strong balance, of character and action, of course, and beauty, romance, adventure as well. Very globetrotting as well, at times, and yeah, it's just the plot in this film is definitely more. I think more interesting than again Tomorrow Never Dies. Although there's some some things, as I've said, the exposition to this in this film at times. Again, it feels slightly off. There are some slights of this film. There are some slights that kind of bring the film down a little bit. But overall, I love this film so much. I think just this film is constantly engaging. Of course, MI6 feels like a family. It feels like a family, and of course Bond's interactions with all the different characters in this film, so interesting, so compelling, and warm, and just charming. Really is quite a treat, this film, actually, and what it's doing in its world building. Really is. Of course, you have this plot, very interesting plot, quite different to a lot of the Bond films in essence. But yes, it's kind of the different plots or subplots that happen in this film. For example, M being captured, and of course Elektra being, of course, the kind of daughter, of course, of Robert King, and Bond sent to kind of protect her. These are the things that stand out to me in terms of the narrative, and the way in which they offer so much, for potential for developing different things around these kind of events, or initial drives of the film, and from then we have this wonderful wonderful film in its direction. The editing is great, mostly, I think. And of course, seeing Sokovsky, appear once again, Robbie Coltrane, is so great once again. He really is such a great character, I feel, in this, and Goldeneye in particular. And to see him return is such a kind of crowd pleasing moment. I love this. It's so great. And once again, he's up to his old tricks. He's definitely very complex character. But in this one, you have that tragic moment, of course, when he perishes, which is very sad actually, and because he was great in this film, and such a kind of unique character, so humorous, I feel, especially in Goldeneye, but yes, just seeing him return, for him to kind of exit, in the way he does, it's very touching as well. And this film is all about kind of characters and just humanity. This one, I really feel very human Bond, and of course, seeing this kind of these character traits of Bond being brought out in a very unique way. In this film, I think seeing this caring side to Bond, seeing the kind of the unique feelings throughout the film, the complex emotions. Seeing Bond vulnerable in this film for a number of reasons, of course. And just kind of this mix of villains really kind of it gets it right. Michael Apted really directed this film quite wonderfully actually, and just the kind of mix, the kind of array of villains is very pleasing to see. And yes, of course, Elektra being the standout, in terms of villains or threats in the film, and the way in which she's introduced very early on, and the way in which she kind of exits the film all the way through the film. She is so compelling, and such kind of delightful performance, so charming, of course, and just so interesting to see the dynamics between Elektra and Bond, and just seeing, of course, Christmas Jones as well being quite an interesting, kind of, for me, mildly enjoyable, kind of relationship actually, with Bond. It's all quite an array in this film. You've got so much going on. Of course, it doesn't always perfectly work. There are some kind of faults along the way, or certain moments that feel slightly off, in terms of tone. But really, this is mostly a great Bond film. I absolutely love it. I think it's fun. It's got its magic moments as well. It's got such an adventure feel. Of course, it's very very grounded. Very much focusing on the characters once again, and at the same time, you've got these bombastic, and just multi-layered action sequences. I guess one of the best moments action-wise in the film is its opening, the opening sequence, of course, to this film. It's so thrilling. It's so epic. It's so just fun and just humorous and stunning to behold. I think yes, it's very kind of hard to follow up, kind of a sequence like that and kind of top that, throughout the rest of the film. And maybe it doesn't really need to, but it's great to kind of see, this opening sequence. It certainly gets me pumped, and of course the credits being not one of the best Bond themes, title themes, but definitely a theme that I really really like, and just seeing. The credits are very very different this time round. Not kind of generic credits like some of the ones. For example, Tomorrow Never Dies wasn't great. I feel the titles, the credits there, the sequence, not great. And this one's more interesting. It's more of a realised sequence, more colourful, and just more interesting to see, to look at. And yes, of course. Once again, we have a great score. David Arnold, really wonderful score here. And yes, as I say, Tomorrow Never Dies and actually GoldenEye, for me, are the better Brosnan era scores. But this one, once again, from David Arnold, really is quite something. And just the way in which it relates once again to the characters, to the kind of the narrative actually. It's really really quite interesting this time round. And it's just a perfect kind of mix at times. There's sequences in this film that are quite flawless, in the handling of character work, just humour and action, and the way in which it flows effortlessly, kind of throughout the film. At times the flow to this is really quite wonderful and quite something. There are other times, that kind of it feels slightly off, as I say. There are imperfections. There are moments, of course, that do. They're kind of moments where maybe things could have been a bit better. For example, as well. Of course, Renard, as I say, for me is a great villain, a great character in this film. Of course, Robert Carlyle is great in the film, and but having said that, a lot of people maybe don't, say this, but Robert Carlyle to me is one of the best, modern actors, and I really think he is, a genius actor, and actually, by that standard, by that point, I think. This film, in the character of Renard, etc. I think it could have been a bit better. Maybe I expected a bit more because of the standard of, Robert Carlyle, and for him to be a villain of the film, I guess, it could have been a bit better. It could have been improved. But regardless, a great character, a great performance, very very interesting, very different, very vulnerable character. This character shows no pain, of course. Physically, but this is a traumatized character, and very very bold. For of course Michael Apted and everyone involved, to kind of create a Bond film where we have this kind of this shift of power, and the actual outcome, these. Of this character Renard, of course, but these villains, overall, and the actual outcome is very very bold. Actually, and of course, to actually see M as well captured, and for Bond to, of course, rescue M, in essence, is so kind of cool to see, and so investing, so unique. This one, and that's what I think about this film. It's such a unique, more balanced film mostly, and just so fun once again, so entertaining, but really so well made. This is a great film in my opinion. It's a great action film. It's a great Bond film. It has so much atmosphere, so much style and class, and there are moments, of course, where it lacks this. It lacks the charm, it lacks the kind of maybe the tone, the perfect tone. But I think really overall, this is such a great Bond film, and I really, really love this film. I think yes, it's very divisive. Once again, it goes without saying these Brosnan films, they're all divisive, not too popular really. Among fans, but I think this film here is yet another film, of course, starring Pierce Brosnan, that I really, really love, and actually for me, one of the better Bond films, in the franchise. So yes, this may not be, my favourite Pierce Brosnan Bond. No, 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 that's GoldenEye for me. But yes, having said that, I really think this is quite a stunning action film, stunning Bond film actually, and one of the better Bonds, as I've said, and just it's a film that really, kind of, as I've kind of watched it more and more, it's really, really, grown on me and emerged as actually quite a unique Bond, and one that's got a great structure, really interesting structure to the film, and just the writing in this one is so strong, and the performances, of course. Sophie Marceau especially is a standout as Elektra King, and of course that villain being just so great. Again, one of the better Bond villains actually for me, and really, she's one a villain with class, with style, with sophisticated elements to the character working, and of course just the actual the presence of Sophie Marceau. It's quite delightful. It's menacing at times, and just seeing her in the background at times as well. And knowing, of course, when you've watched the film, knowing that the kind of character shifts, the different moments, that happen. Seeing a different subtle hints throughout. Really is quite a treat, and I think actually just the atmosphere to this one is so it's dark at times, but it's a particular level of just mystery, very mysterious film. This quite a kind of an aura to it, actually, it really is quite interesting, and just so great, this film, for the characters, the character working, the world building. It's so immersive. It's so there's different references, of course, to past Bond films, but it's its own thing. It's very, very unique, this one. It's definitely a great film for me. I love this film. I think as well. What I love about this one, it's not quite in Tomorrow Never Dies. It's the consistent kind of balance and presence, I feel, of different characters with Bond. Of course, Tomorrow Never Dies in the first half was really quite exceptional for me, and I think seeing different MI6 members, for example, M, in the first half of that. They were kind of absent, I feel, from the second half of Tomorrow Never Dies. This one is more consistent. They're consistently there. They're consistently involved in the narrative in an organic way. I don't feel there are gimmicky moments in this to have them appear, for example, for fan service. No, no, no. I think really quite a kind of a grounded and organic approach to these characters, and how they're developed in the film. I think M is just a standout character in this film. Once again, Judy Dench. This is definitely a great performance. She was so great as M. Even just seeing the moments. Of course, in GoldenEye. Again, her first appearance. Seeing they don't really. She was in a couple of scenes, of course, with Bond there, but just the initial kind of sparks there. The kind of moments I think back to. When she first kind of confronts Bond, in that film, so perfect. Her performance, her character, as M, and just seeing the chemistry, between her and Brosnan, really worked so wonderfully in these films that I've kind of discussed so far. And once again, in this film, very different, but of course, the caring nature, the vulnerable side of Bond is all kind of brought out in this film through other characters, through interactions in organic ways, of course. The plot is very interesting as well. Again, not one of my favourite kind of plots to a Bond film, but it's more the things that are going on that maybe you wouldn't expect as the main plot to the film. I think that are more interesting. For example, the whole thread with the massive event, of course, running throughout the film with M getting captured, as well as Bond being sent to kind of protect initially Elektra, and for then her to kind of reveal herself as the main villain, and very dark kind of motives and things she's done in the film, and very very, very complex character. But of course, the tragic aspects, of these two villains, her, of course, being Elektra and, of course, Renard as well. Very fascinating character. Robert Carlyle was so entertaining in this film and just so, so menacing. The whole kind of thing with, him feeling no pain. So well kind of introduced. Again, very, very out there, very outlandish, this film, in moments. But overall, it really feels more like a grounded Bond in its approach. Stylistically, it's definitely, really quite, really beautiful at times. More kind of natural in the way it kind of looks, the architecture to the film, the geography of it, the locations, of course, just being, shot in Spain, in France, Turkey, for example, and of course the UK. Just the way these locations are captured, though, just feel so lovely, really, and it's just a wonderful film visually throughout. Of course, very very few slights to the film. I think there are things that could have been better. There are some slights here and there. For example, some of the tone is very slightly off, but I don't think this is a film that has a weak act at all. It's never, kind of for more than a moment here and there, something that could have been, improved upon. I think the structure of this film is quite impeccable, actually, and I don't think there's any act of the film or, maybe 10-minute segment here or there that at all. None of these in these areas, I don't think it's a film that consistently feels maybe flat or kind of lacking at all. I think it's just certain moments, very 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 much flourishes here and there, very kind of small moments or slights to the film. So in that sense, it doesn't bring the score down too much. I think this is a truly great Bond, and actually for me, it's better than Tomorrow Never Dies. And I really think, it's this balance of character, intrigue. The plot is very, very interesting, and the atmosphere and just the charm of this one, with these, stunning action sequences, layered sequences. The way they're shot and edited, it's thrilling, it's Bondy, and it really, really is. It feels like a true Bond film once again. I think, and just. These three Brosnan films, I'm a big, big fan, of course, especially, GoldenEye, but this one, once again, is a truly great Bond film, in my opinion, personally. Again, it's just my opinion. I don't expect much people, really take to this film at all, but for me, it's really a film that I love. I find so much kind of comfort in this as well. It's such a kind of, an easy Bond film to watch and just, fall in love with, and just seeing the interactions, feeling this kind of well, of course, MI6 feeling like a family in this one, as I've said. I've said that a few times. They feel like a family. It's so warm and kind of, you get this feeling that they're all kind of characters, kind of in it together in that sense, and not just side characters. In this film, and just the way they're developed, of course, and just for example, feeling the presence of different characters as well. Robinson, he is such a kind of great character in these films, and I think, yes, once again, the performances throughout the film, of course, Desmond Llewelyn, his final role, his final performance, tragic, so sad, but of course we pay tribute to the wonderful actor and individual that he was. He was the best Q. Again, not dismissing the other ones, portrayals, of course, but he was, my favourite, and 17 Bond films, and of course that moment, so touching, so emotional there. Really makes me tear up, actually, that moment. But of course you've got John Cleese as R, and adding so much comedy to the film. This, of course, it's not maybe as humorous, for example, as Tomorrow Never Dies in places, but it still has the comedy, it still has the charm, and as well as more of an elegance, a grace, and just more investing for me. I like this more than Tomorrow Never Dies, but I think, having said that, I love both, and it doesn't really matter too much. But I do, personally love this film, and for me, it truly is a great Bond, and yes, just I'll be giving this a very, very high score, and if you're interested in that, my final rating for this film is the same as last time round. I gave this score last time when I reviewed this more than 2 years ago now, and that is an extremely high score of 93%. Yes indeed. I love this film from the opening sequence, which is one of the most thrilling, and fun, and just humorous as well at times. Bond opening sequences, very lengthy compared to many of the other Bond sequences opens, of course. But yes, so layered and so constantly thrilling, and it's got so much in this sequence alone, and from then it only gets more compelling with the characters, more mysterious, and just so much atmosphere to this film. The way characters are framed in this, just the way in which there are subtle moments in the background, as well as just the interactions in this film, very complex, very compelling indeed, and a film that I love for so many reasons. I love once again Pierce Brosnan. He is so good in this film, and you've got so much enjoyable moments throughout, and of course humorous moments with him. And but in this film, he really feels the humanity is brought out so much in this one, and the interactions and the caring nature, and just seeing seeing the relationships develop in this film, just seeing all these other characters. It's so warm, this one, so kind of felt in its characters. Of course, the world building in general is just really quite stunning, actually. So immersive, this one, and so many standout moments in this. The hilarious moments, of course, with the James Bond line that I've mentioned, just so hilarious, and many moments of comedy. But it's so consistent, this film, so consistently immersive, engaging, enjoyable for me. And I think this and Tomorrow Never Dies, Goldeneye, I love all three, and I think they're so just so comforting to me, and I really have so much praise, kind of in defence of Brosnan, perhaps. A lot of people are not do not take to this portrayal, but I really am a big fan of Brosnan. He really is such a great Bond in my eyes, and I think these first three are truly worthy entries, I think, in the franchise. And Brosnan, once again, absolutely brilliant in this film. He really was so great. And of course, next up, we have Die Another Day, and we'll get to that. I watched that again last night, actually. And yes, we have some interesting things to say about that. Quite, of course, a bizarre experience watching that last night. And we have quite a few things to say about that. But I think Brosnan, was such a great Bond, and once again, he has this suave, just cool attitude about him in this. Of course, the ruthless feeling. He was a great Bond. He really brought out the traits of this character so well, adding his own kind of charm, unique charm to the character, the take on this character. But really, I think it's its core element, this character Bond, he really brought out the kind of the important traits, and just the mix of the kind of charm, the comedy that he brought to the character. Combine that with the ruthless, raw, kind of hard-hitting Bond that he was. So yes, that's my personal opinion, on this film. I personally love the film, and yes, just really such a lovely, wonderful experience once again. I love Bond so much. Of course, it's my favourite franchise of all time, and yes, once again, another great Bond film for me, personally. So yes, we have, of course, next up being Die Another Day, the last, this part, of course, of the set behind me, and yes, ending it, with Die Another Day, very interesting. But then, of course, we have Casino Royale. So yes, I can't wait for that one. But yes, I watched Die Another Day yesterday once again, and yes, we'll give that a review. We'll give that, of course, a respectful, kind of just going through that film once again, as I always do, just expressing my feelings, my kind of thoughts on these films, and it's an interesting film to talk about, that one, and this film here, though The World Is Not Enough, I personally love it, and yes, my personal opinion, of course. Again, they're not popular films. I don't expect positive reactions to these ones, but yes, I personally, just my personal take. I really defend these films. I defend Brosnan. I defend quite a few individuals in these films, of course, and I just love this kind of phase of Bond. Kind of a wonderful marriage of charm, comedy, campy moments, definitely, with this ruthless, once again, take on Bond, and yes, just seeing Brosnan, in these first three Bond films, really, it's so great that he got these. At least in my opinion, they're all great, at least, and GoldenEye so much more than great, you know, in my opinion. But yes, this one once again, I really adore this film. But yes, tell me your thoughts, of course, and yes, just anything cinema related, as always. So yes, as always, take care, and yes, thanks for watching.